yanked me and she was like, this is like a learning moment. Do we need that in this moment? Like, no.
Right. Caitlin Clark, right? Like, she's lighting things up. She's probably made more in NIL money or could potentially make more.
We saw you about to throw that, but I think it's just like kind of a learning process.
The money in the WNBA is non-existent.
Right.
Right? Like,
but she could change that.
Something shifted, and the strange part is nobody officially announced it. No press conference, no headline transaction, no dramatic quote. But if you've been watching the energy around Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever closely, you can feel it. The tone changed. The style changed. The conversation changed. And when that happens in pro sports, it usually means something happened behind doors that cameras weren't invited into. Hear what has people talking. Over the past stretch, multiple podcasts, fan analysts, and league watchers have pointed to reports of a high-level internal conversation, a leadership-level check-in about direction, identity, and how the franchise plans to handle its most valuable spotlight magnet. Important line right up front. There is no public confirmation of what was said in any such meeting. But the rumor itself didn't appear out of thin air. It grew from patterns fans think they're seeing on the court and in the messaging around the team.
Your two Iowa teams left a mark on women's college basketball, but also women's basketball at large. Is that like kind of crazy to think about? Like, you were a part of something that was a catalyst for this like larger group.
I had heard about this Caitlin Clark, and I was like watching videos of her just like having like 40 points.
And with a player like Clark, patterns get magnified. Because this isn't just about box scores. She brings ratings spikes, sellout crowds, viral clips, sponsor interest, and national broadcast pull. When one athlete starts moving business metrics as much as basketball metrics, organizations don't treat that like a normal roster piece, they treat it like a franchise engine. That's standard sports economics, not conspiracy talk. At the same time, observers notice stylistic shifts, pace adjustments, role balance changes, fewer of the chaotic long-range heat check moments that made highlight shows explode. Some call it natural growth and system discipline. Others believe it looks like containment. That disagreement is where the speculation lives. Now add one more layer: ownership structure, executive oversight, and brand protection logic, and suddenly the questions get heavier. Not emotional, structural. Who is steering the long-term identity? Basketball staff? Business leadership? Both. In this breakdown, we're going to walk through what's confirmed, what's rumored, what's misinterpreted, and what actually makes sense when a franchise suddenly becomes bigger than its playbook. Because whether the closed-door story is true or not, the gravity around this situation is very real. Superstars don't just change scoreboards, sometimes they change business models. And that's the clearest starting point for understanding why the conversation around Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever feels different from a normal player development story. Before we even get into rumors or internal politics, look at the measurable impact pattern. Ticket demand spikes. Road games feel like home games for the opponent's box office. Broadcast windows expand. Merch interest jumps. Casual viewers who normally skip regular season WNBA games suddenly tune in. That's not theory, that's the widely discussed Clark effect across sports media. When one player pulls new audience layers into the product, the franchise stops operating under normal conditions. Front offices notice that immediately. Because at that point, wins and losses are still important, but they're no longer the only scoreboard being watched. Engagement becomes a second scoreboard. Attention becomes a second currency. Sponsors, partners, and network planners start asking different questions than coaches do. Coaches ask, what wins games? Business leaders ask, what grows the platform? Most of the time those answers overlap, but not always. That's where tension narratives are born. Not because someone is the villain, but because incentives differ. Basketball operations are trained to value structure, efficiency, and role balance. Business operations are trained to value visibility, star power, and audience pull. When a player drives both, alignment is easy. When style choices appear to reduce visible star moments, even if they improve team balance, debate begins. And that's exactly what fans started noticing. The feeling, right or wrong, that the on-court style around Clark began to look more controlled and less explosive. That perception, not proof, but perception, is what opened the door for the next wave of talk. Because once fans sense a pattern shift, rumor rushes in to explain it. The moment that really fueled the speculation wasn't a quote, it was a vibe change. Viewers watching the Indiana Fever week to week started saying the same thing in different ways. The offense looked different, not broken, not worse, just different around Caitlin Clark. The pace felt more measured, the risk level looked lower. The deep, longer-range heat checks that used to detonate arenas showed up less often. Possessions looked more distributed. Decision trees looked more structured. Some analysts praised it immediately, calling it maturity, pro-adjustment, and system growth. Others said it felt like creative restriction. That split is important, because both interpretations can be reasonable at the same time. Under a structure-first coaching philosophy, often associated with coaches like Stephanie White, the goal is to raise team efficiency, reduce volatility, and keep multiple threats engaged. That usually means fewer ultra-high variance possessions and more shared creation responsibility. From a pure basketball standpoint, that can absolutely increase competitiveness. But from an entertainment standpoint, it can change the flavor. And flavor matters when a player's biggest impact is also tied to watchability. Clark's long-range confidence and fast trigger style aren't just tactical tools, they're audience magnets. When those moments appear less frequently, fans notice, even if the overall team execution improves. Now, to stay grounded, there is no official statement saying anyone told the staff to reduce her freedom or redesign her role. What exists is observation plus interpretation. But in sports media ecosystems, repeated interpretation quickly becomes narrative. And that narrative led directly to the next layer of buzz, claims that something bigger than coaching preference might have entered the conversation. That's where the closed-door meeting rumor starts showing up, and where we have to separate talk from proof very carefully. This is the part of the story where the temperature jumps, and where we have to slow down and label things clearly. Over the past stretch, several podcasts, fan live streams, and social media analysts have claimed that a high-level internal meeting took place involving leadership voices connected to the Indiana Fever, centered on direction, identity, and how the franchise should position Caitlin Clark going forward. Right up front, there is no official confirmation of the content of any such meeting, no transcript, no press release, no on-record executive quote. Everything circulating comes from secondary talk sources and discussion shows. That makes it rumor, not verified fact. So why is the rumor spreading so hard? Because it fits the pattern people think they're seeing. When fans observe a style shift, a tone shift, and a messaging shift at the same time, they start looking for a single hidden cause. Closed-door leadership conversations are the most common explanation people reach for, even when multiple smaller factors could explain the same outcome. According to the circulating chatter, again, unverified, the alleged theme of that meeting was simple: whether the franchise should more clearly center its on-court identity around Clark's strengths and visibility impact, not as a good piece, but as the pillar. That wording is coming from rumor chains, not documented reporting, but it's the claim driving the debate. Sports history explains why people find this believable. When a player dramatically increases a franchise's national footprint, leadership check-ins happen. That part is normal. Executives review direction. Ownership asks questions. Brand strategy gets discussed. That doesn't prove a mandate was issued, but it explains why the idea doesn't sound impossible to fans. Still, rumor alone doesn't create pressure. Pressure comes from structure, specifically who sits above basketball operations and what incentives they answer to. And in this case, the ownership layer adds another dimension that makes the speculation feel heavier to observers. To understand why this rumor has legs, you have to look one level above coaching and roster decisions: ownership structure. The Indiana Fever don't operate as a small, isolated basketball operation. They sit under the larger Pacers sports and entertainment umbrella, long associated with ownership leadership from Herb Simon and the Simon Family Sports Business Network. That matters not because owners micromanage playbooks, but because they monitor franchise value signals. At ownership level, the questions sound different from coaching questions. Coaches ask, are we executing? Are we improving defensively? Are we winning matchups? Ownership asks, are we growing demand? Are we maximizing visibility? Are we protecting our highest value asset? Different lenses, same team. When a player like Caitlin Clark creates a measurable attention surge, tickets, ratings, sponsorship pull, she stops being just a roster star and becomes a portfolio driver. In sports business language, that called a platform asset. And platform assets usually trigger closer executive attention, not secret control, but closer attention. That's standard across pro sports, not scandal territory. Now connect that to the rumor chain. When fans hear that leadership may have held a direction meeting, and they know ownership has financial incentives tied to Clark's visibility, the story feels plausible to them. Not proven, but plausible. That's why it spreads. It's also why this debate is often misframed as villains versus heroes, when it's more accurately described as philosophy versus incentives. Basketball philosophy says build balance, reduce volatility, distribute responsibility. Business incentives say amplify the engine that grows the audience fastest. Usually teams try to blend those. Sometimes the blend looks smooth. Sometimes it looks tense from the outside. And according to the next wave of online claims, again, unverified, that blend may not have been perfectly smooth behind the scenes. That's where the alleged pushback story enters the conversation. Now we reach the most sensitive part of the narrative, the claim that there may have been internal resistance to the idea of fully centering the system around Caitlin Clark. This is where engagement spikes online and where accuracy matters most. Hear what's being said and what is not confirmed. Several online commentators and fan-driven shows have suggested that if a direction-setting conversation happened, it may not have been universally embraced at the coaching level, specifically pointing toward head coach Stephanie White as someone strongly committed to system balance, structure, and distributed responsibility. The rumor version says she preferred system integrity over star-centric redesign. Important line, there is no verified report, quote, or official source confirming any confrontation, refusal, or mandate dispute. This is interpretation layered on top of speculation, not documented conflict. But the reason the theory sticks is stylistic contrast. White's publicly known coaching identity emphasizes spacing, reads, shared creation, and controlled pace. That model has real strengths. It stabilizes teams, it reduces randomness, it builds repeatable habits. However, star-driven offensive models often do the opposite. They increase volatility, they increase highlight moments, they increase usage concentration. Both can work, but they are philosophically different. So when observers saw stretches where Clark's shot profile, pace, or risk tolerance appeared moderated, they filled the information gap with a power struggle explanation. Not because they had proof, but because humans prefer a single dramatic cause over multiple subtle ones. There are also simpler explanations that require no internal battle at all. Rookie adjustment curves, matchup-based game plans, fatigue management, defensive scouting reactions, or deliberate development packing. Those happen every season across every league, quietly. Still, once the system versus star frame takes hold, every substitution pattern and play call gets interpreted through that lens. Neutral moves start looking political. Routine coaching language starts sounding coded. That's how narratives snowball. And when narrative meets metrics, attendance, ratings, buzz cycles, the conversation shifts again. Because in modern pro sports, when numbers move, interpretation follows fast. That's where the business performance angle enters next. Here, where the conversation stops being only about rotations and play style and starts being about economics. Because whether people like it or not, once a player becomes a ratings driver, every basketball decision around them gets viewed through a business lens. With Caitlin Clark, that shift happened almost instantly. Ticket demand jumped, national broadcasts increased, merch moved faster, road arenas filled, social clips exploded. That kind of surge doesn't just excite fans, it gets executive attention, not in a dramatic movie scene way, but in a spreadsheet way. Trend lines, forecasts, sponsor calls, broadcast negotiations, expansion talk. When a single athlete noticeably moves those needles, leadership starts asking a different kind of question. Are we maximizing the moment or just managing it? That's why the rumored ownership-level interest in team direction, while unconfirmed, doesn't feel impossible to people who understand sports business. Not because of conspiracy, because of incentives. Modern pro franchises don't treat breakout stars as normal roster pieces. They treat them as growth engines. And growth engines get protected. That protection can show up as marketing support, roster moves, schedule positioning, or philosophical alignment. It doesn't require anyone storming into a locker room. Often it's quieter, priority signals, resource shifts, long-term framing. But here's the nuance most viral takes skip. Business alignment and coaching structure are not automatic enemies. The best organizations blend both: star amplification and system integrity, usage freedom and decision discipline. The tension only becomes a problem if either side refuses to flex. Right now, what we actually have is this: no confirmed internal mandate, no verified coaching rebellion, no official ownership directive, only pattern interpretation layered onto visible style shifts. But perception itself has power, and once fans believe business stakes are influencing basketball choices, every game starts feeling like evidence. Which leads to the final piece of the story: what this all means going forward, and why the next phase matters more than the rumor phase. Here's the part nobody can script, because this is where outcomes decide which narrative survives. If the system-first approach continues and the team keeps improving, winning more games, tightening execution, and building playoff credibility, then the "they're holding her back" storyline fades on its own. Results silence speculation faster than statements ever will. Structure gets credit. Coaching philosophy looks validated. The noise cools. But if performance stalls while the offense looks restrained and the highlight factor keeps dipping, the opposite happens. Then every earlier rumor, every alleged meeting, every supposed directive, every theory about control comes roaring back louder. Not because it was proven, but because humans connect disappointment to hidden causes. That's the fork in the road. With a gravity-level player like Caitlin Clark, you're not judged only on wins and losses. You're judged on impact visibility. Does the game feel alive when she's on the floor? Does the product feel must-watch? Do casual viewers stay through the fourth quarter? Those are modern success metrics, whether traditionalists like it or not. Coaches naturally prioritize repeatable habits. Executives naturally prioritize scalable attention. Players naturally prioritize competitive rhythm. Those three priorities don't always align neatly, but elite organizations figure out how to stack them instead of choosing between them. And here's what often gets missed. Superstar integration is rarely smooth in year one. Defensive adjustments happen, teammate chemistry calibrates, usage balance gets tested, film study catches up. Even legendary careers show early tension between freedom and control. That's not dysfunction, that's development under a spotlight. So the real outcome won't be decided by rumored meetings or podcast theories. It will be decided by three observable things over time. Does her usage expand or contract? Does the offense evolve toward her strengths? Does team success rise alongside her visibility? If those trend upward together, the controversy dissolves. If they pull in opposite directions, the debate intensifies. And that sets up the final takeaway, not about rumor, not about blame, but about leverage, timing, and why this moment is bigger than one coaching decision. Conclusion: rumor versus pattern asterisk. Step back from the noise for a second. and the picture gets clearer. What we actually have is a stack of unverified claims layered on top of very real observable patterns, and those are not the same thing. No official source has confirmed a closed-door mandate. No executive has gone on record declaring a system overhaul built around one player. No coach has publicly acknowledged internal conflict. The dramatic version of the story lives mostly in fan spaces, live stream debates, and interpretation threads. But the pattern underneath the rumors is real, and that's why this story has traction. A franchise experienced a sudden national spotlight. A rookie star, Caitlin Clark, drove measurable attention. The team's on-court style visibly evolved. Coaching language emphasized balance and structure. Fans noticed a difference in freedom and packing. Business interest around the team increased. Conversations about identity got louder. None of that is fictional, that's pattern. Rumors try to explain patterns with hidden meetings and power struggles. Reality is usually less cinematic and more gradual. Sports organizations rarely flip direction with one dramatic order. They adjust through layers, analytics reports, coaching meetings, performance reviews, broadcast feedback, sponsor pressure, and competitive results. It's slower, quieter, more procedural than viral posts suggest. And here's the grounded takeaway for high-retention storytelling going forward. Don't present speculation as fact, present it as signal of tension. Tension between development and entertainment, between system and star power, between competitive process and market momentum. That tension is real, relatable, and sustainable for narrative without needing unproven accusations. Because in the end, the scoreboard and the spotlight settle this, not the rumor mill. If the team grows and the star shines, alignment wins. If the team stalls and the spotlight dims, pressure rises. That's not conspiracy, that's pro sports gravity.